To draw nuts in Autocad, you can go by your draw tool and you click polygon. Once you click polygon, you read the instructions at the bottom by the bar. They're typing in a number of sides. So we're typing 6 sides for our hexagon. Once the sides are in, it tells you to choose the center. Then it asks you to inscribe or circumscribe. So for the nuts I am going to draw, we're going to circumscribe them about the circle. So it has your specify radius. So I'm going to type in the radius as 20. And I press enter, the nut or the hexagon is drawn. So this is like a plan view of the nut where you can see the top of it. If I hover on the edge, I can see the center. So I'm just drawing in the circle now that circumscribes the hexagon that is there. From here, I'm going to draw in center lines because this center line is the most important part of the nut that we need if we're going to draw this nut in isometric projection. So I draw a center line going across, a horizontal one, and then I'm going to put a vertical center line in. So we make sure that these lines are from the center of the actual nut, the center of the actual hexagon, the center of the circle. Now I'm going to draw the center line in isometric projection. I'm checking to make sure my polar is at 30, set at 30 degrees. So I draw one here, a line at 150. Then I'm going to repeat the line, and this one will be at 30 degrees. So this is on my iso plane, my isometric plane, and I have just drawn the center line. So I want to get some measurements now. I want to dimension the actual length of the center line in the orthographic view from the center going across to the left. So I've annotated that, dimension it is 23. So I'm going to dimension from the center going across to the right, and that's 23. You realize that I'm measuring from the center going across to the right of the hexagon, from the center going across to the left of the hexagon. Now I'm going to dimension from the center going to the top. So that's 20. And I'm also going to dimension from the center going to the bottom, which is 20. So these measurements, I'm going to put these measurements or transfer them onto the isometric center lines that I have. So from the center here, I'm going to click the center, I'm going to pull up. And here I'm going to put in the measurement 20. Remember, that's the measurement from the center to the top side. I'm going to repeat again, and I'm going to go from the center, and I'm checking to make sure it's at the right angle. I'm also checking to make sure it's on the center. I pull down at 20. So I have just put in both 20s, and that in the orthographic is the vertical center line. Now I'm going to put in the horizontal one, which is 23 to the right and 23 to the left. So I'm going to repeat. You remember to make sure to draw from the center of the circle. I'm going to delete these center lines so that they don't cause any confusion. And from here, we'll draw down at the 23 millimeters. So now I have the center line created for the isometric view of the nut. And I'm just checking the measurement here. It's actually 23, and I'm using the inclined annotation to do that. Checking the second one to make sure, and the second one is at 20. So those measurements are correct. So from here, I'm going to dimension this small part at the top of the hexagon going across to the right to that point. And I realize that the measurement of that is 12. So I am transferring that measurement now onto the isometric. So from the top point, I make sure the angle is at 30. I type in 12. Enter. So around the hexagon, the top and the bottom, those measurements will be 12. So I'm just going to draw in those lines. In the orthographic, these are the lines that are on the top of the hexagon and the bottom. So I'm just drawing in that side, the top side of the hexagon, and I'm connecting it to the left, and I'm also then connecting it to the bottom. So from here, we can see how the points or the corners of the hexagon are connected. And I can see now I have an isometric view of the hexagon. So from here, I want to give my hexagon some thickness. So I'm going to draw down a measurement and I'm going to use a height so that I can give it some thickness or a width. So I'm drawing down at 10 millimeters. And what I'm going to do is I'll just copy this line all the way around for each point. So I'm copying that line all the way around. I've sped it up a little, but I'm coming down from each of the corners and I have that line going down. So I just connect the bottom parts of it. And what I'm going to do, I will draw in the hidden portion of the nut that you can actually see from behind. So this is sped up a little, but I'm just drawing in, copying in that line coming down, and I'm going to connect the base points so you can actually see the hidden detail of the nut. So what I'm doing here now is I'm going to draw the hexagon standing up. And if it were not, it would have a hole in it, but I have not drawn in the hole. I expect that you would draw an ellipse in it so you can show the hole as a nut. So I have my vertical center line and my horizontal center line. And once again, we're going to copy over the measurements or transfer them. So the first measurement I'm going to put in here, make sure it's at the right angle, 23 coming down. And I have changed the layer so that you can see the difference in the lines. 23 going up. Now the measurement there was incorrect. You have to be able to check your correct measurements. So make sure it's on the center, 30 degrees, 23 going up, and I press enter. So I'm doing the same thing now going upwards. Remember the measurement going up is 20 from the center of that view to the top. So I'm going to just transfer that measurement again. We'll turn on my line and I come from the center, make sure it's straight up, 20. I do the same thing going down, where it's from the center and it's 20 going down. So once again, I have my center lines in. So the center lines are in, and I'm going to put in this 12 here that is going to come across from the top and the bottom. So from the bottom, I type in my 12, make sure it's at the right angle. I connect it then to the 23 that I drew before. I'm going to delete these center lines so it's not confusing. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I draw across my line, this time on the opposing side at 12, and then I connect it to the left point there. You may realize that that point to the left is slightly off, so please make sure that yours are correct. That will be corrected in this video in a few minutes. So I go across to my 12 and then I come down. Now as I zoom in, you can see that the point is off. So the lines are going to be deleted and then I'll just draw them over, connecting them to the right point. And this is your isometric view of your nut. Realize that this one is standing. I measure across the center. So if the width of the nut or the thickness of the nut is 10, I would measure across 10 from the center line. So from here, I'm going to copy the points and I'll paste over the hexagon. I'll move it from the center across. Now, when I copy it, I'm going to copy it using the clipboard. So clipboard copy, and I make sure I move it from the center and I paste it on the other end of the center line. So the distance between these two hexagons would be whatever the thickness of your nut is. So just to make sure it's clear, I'm deleting the old center line and I'm going to connect the edges. Now I've sped up this portion a little bit, but I'm just connecting the edges. Once those edges are drawn in, you can see the finished nut.